What's the sugar?
Recordings in progress. We're good to go. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tim Waller. I have been in the business since 1983. Can I see a show of hands of anybody who was born after 1983? Okay. So I was already existing on the planet when you guys were the developmental stage. So has anybody in here seen our great leader, Mr. Boswell's Keller Williams listing presentation 2022? So everybody's seen that, right? That everybody knows out of 1,700 or 1,300 plus offices in the MLS, Keller Williams is 7 out of 10 or 70% of the top. That's pretty good, right? So today I want to talk about the power of questions on a listing presentation. We listen with our ears, right? Not with our mouth. We walk with our feet, not with our hands, as some people do here in a search, I guess. So what I want to do is try to create, I'm not going to do the listing presentation because Bill has already done that, but some of the questions that you should ask during a listing presentation and the different forms of questions there are. There's 5 different types of questions. Anybody know what they are? First one, yes.
Yes, no, meeting.
First one would be called a tie down, and we're going to get into this more as we go along. Then you have the alternative choice question. You have the involvement questions. Of course, the feedback question. And then I save the best one for last, the hot potato questions. Right? No one wants to hold on to that hot potato. You want to throw it back. And what I like to do is when I go on a listing appointment, and again, this is really geared to a 2-step listing, right? So I know that I'm not getting that day because they're going through the interview process. And so I want to get a really good feel of what the seller needs are, what their expectations are of the individual they hire along with the company, because that gives me a better understanding and how I know and what to focus on the second trip when the actual presentation is done. Anybody have any questions so far? Good. All right. So what is our goal?
You got the listing.
That's correct. But there's another goal before we get the listing.
Get the appointment.
It's called the L&T goal. L&T, likability and trust.
Oh,
Those of you who I parade around the office have heard me say that, right? And then we have to work on not telling them, but asking them. That's important. Anybody want to chime in why you think that's important?
because questions control the conversation.
Very good. Did you know that the person who asked the last question in any given conversation is the person in control? Did you know that?
No, but it's good book.
See, I'm in control because she didn't ask me a question.
I bought it. That's why I didn't say.
And then if you tell them something, right, they'll have a tendency maybe not to believe you. But if you rephrase it and ask them, then they're going to be a little more forthright with us. Right? I'm not going to put anybody to sleep here today, I promise. I have my tactics of preventing people who are going on the nod, and that won't happen. So everybody knows Keller Williams, when it started, right? It was Gary Keller and Joe Williams back in 1983, I think. Okay. And their philosophy was that many traditional real estate brokerages, they felt their agents worked for the company. Gary Keller's philosophy was, no, we the company work for the agents. Right? And that's why we have the agent leadership team. They're always inputting on what the market center can do to make our lives easier. And that's awesome because I don't want to admit this, but I'm gonna. When I came into the business, there was none of it. I had to use a multiple listing book
And dial up to the MLS.
and dial up to the MLS, and a term called microfiche,
Oh,
my gosh.
all that good stuff. So what I do when I meet people is I give them the 3 whys, right? Why Keller Williams, why the Prosperity Network, and why us, you, me, if you work on a team, all that good stuff. And then I'll ask them, I'll say, look, before you show me all the wonderful things you've enjoyed throughout the years in your home, would you mind if we sat down at either at the dining room table or kitchen table, whatever you prefer, just so I can ask you a few questions, right? You do that initially when you go on your listing appointment?
I said it there, one or the other, but sometimes they walk around if they want to jump in and take me around their prop, the house.
Okay.
And it's, yeah.
Because I, it's not that I'm a control freak, but I like to try to take control of the situation, so I like to have that interaction before they then show me around.
Yeah.
Plus, it gives me the time to be a little bit of a detective, looking for maybe golf clubs in the corner, fish hanging on the wall,
Yeah,
or a sewing machine,
Mhm.
and I kind of get a feel for what their lifestyle is. As quirky as that may sound,
No,
it's worked for them.
Yeah.
So, we're at the next slide, but qualifying the seller with questions to me is very, very important. Now, you can come up with your own questions, but these are just some ideas, thinking back. You remember why you purchased the home, and what were all the things that you enjoyed in it. Why is that important? Because if it was important to them, they think it may be important to the next buyer. When your home successfully sells, where are you moving to? You may not know that. If you do know that, you don't have to ask them. But the reason you ask that is if they're moving out of state, guess what? Keller Williams Network, we can find a great agent that knows the area where you're moving to, and it's gonna be a seamless transaction for you. Oh, I'm sorry. It's my wife.
It's a listing appointment. She wants to watch, so somebody wants to.
That wasn't planned, by the way. Okay. Now, the next question I asked is, I want to see what kind of market knowledge do they have? Who am I dealing with, right? So, in your opinion, do you think the overall market conditions in your neighborhood will improve over the next 3 to 6 months, stay the same, or worse? So asking that and taking notes, I can refer to it when I go back to the presentation. Because no one likes to tell you something and you go back and say, well, in our first meeting, you said this.
Yeah.
Did I hear you correct?
Yeah.
Like deal. Okay. And current interest rates are on the rise. Do you think if interest rates increase, it's going to have an impact on current real estate value? Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a numbers guy, I want to know if they understand.
Yeah.
Next, in today's real estate market, current inventories are low, yet some homes just don't sell. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I mind if I ask why you think that is? Because I want to hear if you're going to blame the realtor.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you know you're in trouble.
So all these are just, and you don't have to ask all of them. It depends on how the conversation's going, but these are questions that you should take notes during that. Because chances are your competition isn't going through that series of questions. Even if you're the first one in the door, if they don't do the same thing you're doing, they're gonna say, why did the other person ask me all these questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you're, like, before any of this happens, when you're on the phone with them, do you have any qualifying questions for them on the phone when you're setting up this appointment?
My main objective when I'm on the phone is to try to just get the appointment. Because I see too many agents trying to get individuals to list over the phone. And I've yet to see the arm come through my cell phone and say, where do I sign?
Yeah. Not that I wasn't, I would never. even
No.
think of it.
Yeah, I would ask them, where do you think you're going, or you doing other people, what's your time frame?
Yeah.
You know, if someone tells me, well, I'm not thinking about next year, I'll let them know, I'll say, well, look, honestly, values today may very well be different next year.
Yeah.
And my advice is, we can still come over and give you the value right now, but you're gonna have to have another assessment as you get closer to the time of when you're going to sell your property. Okay. It's a loaded question. Realistic, Flo, how long do you think it's gonna take to sell your home?
A week, because everything else is selling in a week.
So in other words, finding a buyer in a week and closing in 30 days is fine by you?
Yes.
Outstanding. Let me get to work. Most people would say, well, I really need
Yeah.
75. And then when you find the right company and sales associate, will you be putting your home on the market immediately or sometime? Right, you want to know.
Yeah.
I saved the best question for last. And this is really, you ever phrase this any way you want to phrase it? What do you want and expect in your realtor in the company? Because this is where you find out if you're going to be dealing with someone very needy
Mhm,
or very high maintenance.
mhm.
And that's okay. I've had my share of them throughout my 39 years in this business. Sometimes I embrace it as a challenge. Sometimes I'm a little bored and say, yeah, I need to find a needy person. Or I just came off, I had a client, I nicknamed him the dentist. Because every time I went to see him, he would do a root canal on. So that question there, what's the most important quality or quality you want real estate agent to possess? Is really, really good question to ask. Then you can phrase that blends with your own personality. And then I'm going to spend a lot of time on preparing the appropriate market data that's specific to your neighborhood and home. It'll be more convenient if I came back during the week, or would the weekend be better for you? That's known as the alternative choice question. Okay, they're not going to say, well, no, you can't come during the week, you can't come on the weekend, you'll feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
Or they'll answer and they'll say, well, I really can't do it this week, but next week is fine. Great. Which day? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, morning, afternoon, or evening, always in that question.
Yeah.
I heard a good line today. We were on an appointment. I'm not going to use a curse word. But the guy said, some of you heard me say this before, God has blessed you with 2 ears, but some people just don't know when to shut the bleep up. And there's truth to that. We can talk and talk and talk, and they're looking for different ways they can eliminate you as a candidate. And if you touch on one of those points, you just shot yourself in the foot. All right. After I gather the facts and present a comparable market analysis, would you prefer I tell you what you want to hear, or what you need to know, or what the facts present? You're already setting up. They're telling you, no, please, tell me what I need to know. Fine, let me make a copy of that in my notes. And then one last question, if you don't mind, once you receive the market data and compare market analysis on your home, is there any chance you may try to sell it yourself? I asked that question because I call it, you don't ask it, you may get physicalized. Where they take all your knowledge, all your hard work and effort, and then they take all that wonderful information you share. Boom. So if they tell me that, yeah, we're thinking of selling it on our own, then I know my presentation has to be geared to what? The pitfalls of someone selling. All right. And then you, as it says, right, we can't supply the benefits until we know what the seller's needs are. We don't establish what the seller's needs are if we don't ask the right and appropriate question. Anybody disagree with that? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, we'll move on. Huh? All right. So we're on to the next. Okay. See that curtain? I love that.
That's cute.
The first one is the tie down, right? It's a question at the end of the sentence that demands a yes response. Having a solid reputation for professional is important to you, isn't it? It'd be a fool if they said no. Don't ask them questions that will say no.
Yeah.
Because your listening to the seller is one big yes. What these questions do, the tie down questions, they chisel away. So at the end of the presentation, that one big yes is now much more. That's what they're designed for. I'm gonna pick up my phone just by having it stable. Okay. It would be more convenient. Sometimes people have told me, well, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm getting transferred, I'm gonna move out, and I'm gonna leave my wife and family some time. And I always ask them, would it be more convenient to move as a family? Wouldn't. Because the double moves can be costly. Couldn't. As a real estate expert in New Jersey, I could therefore better serve your real estate needs, couldn't I? Tie downs, again, chiseling away at that one big yes and make it a smaller yes at the end. You're interested in your home being placed in front of as many buyers as possible, aren't you? And if you know the foundational, what's it called, the foundational message in your presentation, right? Which goes something like this. I'm going to try to do it from memory, so forgive me if I'm wrong. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you only have to make one decision, and that decision is to find an agent and their company. It's going to get you and your home in front of more people than anyone else. I think that's.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I went from memory. Come on, wow.
That's good, I like that.
The second form of question is the concurrent. It's a choice, the alternative choice. I have an appointment opening now, or would the afternoon be better for you? If I just say I have an appointment now, it's very easy for the seller to say, well, I'm busy. But if I give them that choice, they're more likely to grant me that one of those time frames. I could be available at 2, or would 4 be more convenient for you? I can clear my schedule for your convenience to see you on Saturday, or would you prefer Sunday? Always thinking the alternative choice. And again, there's 5 of these types of questions, and you don't have to bear them out. As objections come along, you'll see how to answer them, and we can even do a little back and forth objection, right, to each other. Okay, this is the involvement question. And the involvement questions are very important. And as you're going through the presentation, you want to ask some of these questions. Mary, it's a washer, dryer, and appliances thing. If they say, well, no, we're not really moving, that's not a good answer. But if they say, well, we're really thinking about taking the washer and dryer, and it, you know that you got it. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we have our office previews on Tuesday. Everybody remember the office previews, the Kroger lunches? Where have they gone?
Well,
Will you be home, or should I just use the key? No, please, I'll give you the key. I don't want to be doing that. Then you know you're there. All that chiseling that you did before is starting to pay dividends. When we show your home, should we just stop by or call first for an appointment? No, don't just stop by, please. My husband will film it. Please call first. At this time, as a listing agent, you should really start feeling the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Because you know that. Correct. And you can add as many questions to this as you want. Just try to learn the different types of questions and what they do. Okay. The feedback questions. Let's see who's paying. Mr. Roberts. You're sitting on the appointment. and all of a sudden, seller says to you, Bill, are you gonna put a for sale sign on our property?
Absolutely.
Well, if they didn't want a for sale sign, you just shot yourself in the foot. Here, what you do, right? Mr. or Mrs. Jones, would you prefer that I put a Keller Williams Prosperity Realty for sale sign on your front lawn? No, I don't want that. I want my neighbors to know that I'm selling. And then you can, people are that way.
Yes, they are.
And then you can say, I understand, but do I have your permission to speak candidly? And they go, yes. You see, if you were on a dead end road and you didn't get any traffic, I wouldn't be making this effort to tell you why I think you should put a for sale sign on the property. Most people, when they start their search today, they either drive to neighborhoods or they're online. And if the for sale sign isn't on your front lawn, those people are never gonna know that your home's for sale. Remember, it only takes one buyer to put thousands of dollars more in your pocket. You wanna take this position and miss that opportunity that may be that one buyer. And besides, what are your neighbors? You're gonna see all these cars, fancy cars, people scurrying in and out. You say, what are Mary Jo doing? So, and usually if you approach it that way, they'll agree. But you never want to shoot yourself in the foot. I've learned the hard way. And that's what those questions are designed for. We're not signing for 6 months. No way. We already decided at 6 months. You can either say, well, I don't think I'll need more time than that. Or you can answer, obviously, you have a reason for not wanting to sign for 6 months. Would you mind if I asked you why? And let them tell you why. Because you can't solve the objection until they tell you what the true objection is. Right? Here's the big one. I'm not paying a 6% fee when others are willing to do it for less. How many times have we been on that? Right? You don't track just a
Even
little,
after they sign it,
just a little bit. Everybody in real estate pretty much has the same tools, right? We can put it in the multiple listing, we can do brochures, we can do professional photography, we can do video, we can put it on hundreds of different websites. So when someone says, well, I love what you're all about, I love your team, but this agency is saying they'll do the same stuff at 4%. How can I not use that? So you have to have a little bit of a comeback. You can say, yeah, I get it, I understand, you're right. Pretty much we all use the same tools, but here comes the surgical analogy. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, why do some surgeons have a reputation of being renowned and others do not? They all use the same scalpel, correct? But it's the way they make that incision. And it's the way they take care of fixing the problem within that patient that makes them renowned. I have reached that stage in my real estate career where I feel that I'm going to take those tools and make them work better than anyone else can. Sometimes they buy, sometimes they don't. But you have to deliver your value proposition in such a way where they see that value in you as a real estate agent, as a team, as a company.
So can I ask you a question on that?
You can ask anything you want, I mean, I'll answer it.
So let's say there's a brand new agent sitting there, they don't have the experience that you have, so how would you put it for the new real estate agent to like leverage Keller Williams, like what we've done, what our office has done, or would you do it that way? Or if you, like, what would you say if you were just a brand new agent?
I would say I understand. Well, I think that if you're going to have someone that's gonna do all these wonderful things, that's 4% opposed to, or 6%, or 5%, whatever that may be. If they have a reckless behavior about their own compensation, when it comes time to negotiate and fight for you to get you the highest and best price, you really think they're gonna do that when they've already, they don't care? And besides that, as Bill Boswell would say, congratulations. You just negotiated a really good deal for yourself with the person that you just hired to negotiate on your behalf.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Bill's the master.
I know,
So. And then we have my home sold in 60 days. We went over that. We install a lockbox on our home. You always throw it back up. Because you want them to be comfortable.
Yeah.
If you say yes and yes, and they said, you know, I don't want my home sold in 60 days. For instance, when you have my home sold in 60 days, I'll have it sold in a week. Well, if they didn't want to move that quickly, you may. So you throw it back at them. That's what's called the hot potato or the porky punch. Right? Well, that needly creature. I threw it to you, you throw it to her, and she throw it to her, and keep on going around the room. No one wants to hold on to that hot potato. So anytime you get an objection, you're better off throwing it. Any questions so far?
No.
No, I know we're breezing through this relatively quickly. So I call it the 5 Ps. Holistic presentation. 1, we have to prepare like attorneys prepare when they're going to trial. 2, once we've prepared and we gathered the data, what do we have to do? Very good. You gotta practice. Once we finish practicing, we perfect it. Once we perfect it, we now go and present it to the seller. And because you guys are such great listing agents, you prevail. And you know how I'm gonna open this up to questions and answers. No pun intended. But we all know, everybody knows the smile of real estate. No?
no.
I'll share it again.
Okay.
All right. The smile of real estate is stay motivated, inspired, likable, and energized. Because when you smile more in real estate, you'll earn more. And now I open it up to questions and answers.
Stay motivated, inspired, likable, energized.
It's the smile of real estate. Yep. All right, who has questions? Nobody?
So I guess I'm trying to go like with the flow of the thing, so you met with them now. You
I
had
met
it,
with them and then I asked them the qualifying questions. What are you
correct,
moving to?
so now,
What you enjoy about all the wonderful things in your home throughout the years? What made you buy this particular house?
so the next step will be you go to, you tour
Yeah,
them
I
properly.
want to gather as much information. It's almost like personality profile. I want to see where they are, what their needs are, what they don't want, what they're looking for in a real estate professional. Because whatever they're looking for, that's what you become, right? And then as you engage and get into the presentation, when objections come, what do? You. Right? It's the hot potato. I don't want it. Let me give it back to you. But you gotta do it in a way to where you're coming off very, very sincere. And you don't have to ask those exact questions. You could make up your own questions. Every listing, right? Every listing presentation is really not generic. It's got to be molded to the person or family you have in front of you. So what may work for one party may not work for someone else.
I did the fastest listing presentation in my life one time, when I had this dog that was about 300 pounds sitting there looking at me growling the whole time. I molded it, one thing, goodbye. That was.
Well, Talking about dog stories, I was talking about dog stories, I was with another agent. And we were showing a townhouse in Montville, and there's the dog with the owner. And the owner has the dog on a leash. He says, "Oh, don't worry, it shouldn't bite." The realtor goes up like this to put it.
Get the listing?
What?
Did you get the
No, we were showing a house.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did they buy the house? No.
There's too much blood on the ground.
That's like a mistake, I'm like, no, thank you.
You know, I tell people, especially new agents who have to engage in role play. Right? That's where that practice comes in. You're better off feeling uncomfortable and making the mistakes with one another before you actually have to do it live, in a real life situation. And it should almost come to you like we breathe, right? And I don't care, do it 5-10 minutes a day. But do it. That's what's going to make your skills nice and sharp. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
So what do you talk about on the phone versus at the appointment?
What do I talk about the phone? I don't know if I can tell you that. No.
Yeah.
Again, I always have a mindset is I need to, unless they're of course out of state with new technology, you can do Zoom calls, right? You can do a presentation on Zoom. But again, even on the phone, I'm trying to establish that commonality, that common ground. That's why I get up every morning. Sometimes, never, very rarely after 5:30. And the first thing I do is I'll turn on the news, I'll turn on the financial news, because you have to be well versed in everything that's going on in the world, because you never know who you're going to talk to. I never engage in political conversations. I try to be generic in that. Because that's the way things are divided today. You don't want to be on that one side and they say, oh, I'm not using it. You know what I mean? So, but yes, to answer your question, you try to be, I mean, Michael is like phenomenal on the phone. That kid can talk and convince people better than anybody I know. And he because he doesn't hear the word no. Right? In this business, unfortunately, you got to tune out the word no, because you may get 5 or 6 no's before they finally say yes. For instance, I went and I was told that the owner gets home at 7:30 at night. So for 5 nights straight, I went there at 7:30 and I knocked on the door. No one would answer. So I went on Remind. The guy has about 40 emails. I painstakingly went through each email until the email didn't bounce back. And I sent him a really nice email. It was a high-end home. I told him I have an international luxury market that exposes his home to 39 different countries. It goes on Yahweh, the biggest real estate website in China, the whole 9 yards. And he finally responded to my email. You know what he said? Don't stop by my house anymore. I'm not saying. True story. I just got an email last night. I was excited. I saw his name come up. I said, wow, all this just it's gonna pay off. Don't stop by my house anymore. I'm not stopping. And I thanked him. I said, I truly apologize. It's just that I was going to homeowners and trying to sell their home in a different market. And I don't know if you were aware, but the homes in your particular neighborhood have gone up tremendously in the past 2 years. I said, but if I cause any inconvenience, I'm truly sorry. But if in the future you decide to sell, please give me a call.
I bet you don't call you.
He hasn't responded yet. But may take a few more days, but
That's okay.
so phone calling, the objection is to try to get the appointment. And then when they see you face to face, I believe it has more of an impact because you could read them like they're reading you, right? I've always, every time I go to an appointment, I don't use the watch, I use the satellite phone. And if we have an appointment at 7, knock on that door as soon as it turns 7 o'clock. I want them to know that their time is as equally important to me as my own time. If you show up late, you're starting off on a bad note. And the other thing is, guarantee it, if you have an appointment set up, if you're walking up the driveway or the walkway, they're peering out of one window or they're looking. The only thing they see is the big 6% on your head. That is it.
Wouldn't that be funny if you were showing up at 6%?
Huh? I only do 6%. But again, I had shared with Flo is what you do, because if you, too many times I hear agents say, well, what's your commission? 5%. You just shot yourself in the foot. And I would have an inverted triangle. And I would have on the marketing side, selling side, I would have all 3%. I'd start at 2.5, go as high as what was it, 3.5, 4%.
Yeah,
And then if it got to it where people said, I'm not gonna pay you 6%. Well, I need to get the 3% on the marketing side, and I certainly don't want to reduce the buy side. Because the first thing an agent who's showing house is looking, what am I getting compensated for my time and effort? What I can do before I make that statement, can I ask you a question? Putting the commission aside, everything that we've covered tonight. Let's say that the commission was what you say it was. Are you ready to employ my services this evening? And if they say no, then I know there's still objections that are hiding under the rock that I have not been able to extrapolate. If they say yes, then I can come back and say, look, I really, really don't like to do this, and I'm going to do it on your behalf. You're really, really nice people. I can take that 3% marketing fee down to 2.75. So instead of charging you 5.5, I'll do 5.25. And you keep working, but if you start at 5%, you have nowhere to go.
and they'll try and get you to 4.
Hmm?
And they'll
Correct.
try and get you to 4.
And if you start at 6,
Yeah,
they feel like they won, and they get you anything below 6.
yeah.
Whereas if you start at 5, oh,
Yeah.
I even got another one.
Yeah.
Watch this, I'll show you how it's done,
Yeah, no,
that type of deal. But any other questions?
I did want to ask them if, how are your listing presentations different with someone you have a very close personal relationship with versus someone that you're meeting with for the first time?
Good question. If I know the people?
Yeah.
Okay, if I know the people, then I already know what their background is, where they're going. So it's a matter of just telling the Keller Williams story. Why we're going to get their home from more people than anybody else. Why we have the strong market share that we have. Because to me, and I always will use this, whether it's with someone I know or a stranger, is I think this is awesome. Has anybody not heard of Stanford or Harvard? We've all heard of those two institutions, correct? Well, the Keller Williams culture is taught at both Stanford and Harvard universities in their MBA program. To me, that's a big imprimatur of Stanford approval.
I say that, yeah.
But yeah, so to your point, do I do anything different? Yeah, I do a little different. It's much more informal. You know what I mean? They already know my personality.
They
So they know
what-
we gotta pull thin, we tells a joke, laugh.
Yeah. They know, like, they trust you, so it's, you built that already, but that's probably 10 minutes less of your presentation.
Correct.
Because I just had one the other night, they knew us, they liked us, they trust us, they just wanted to sign,
Absolutely.
but we still went through the whole.
You have to have those 3 things or people won't work with you.
Yeah, no, it's.
But again, taking notes on that initial appointment is very important, because when you do your presentation, you're going to refer back to some of the responses they gave to the questions that you asked. And how do you know when you're spending too much time in real estate and not enough time at home?
How do you know when you're starting to, when,
How do you know you're spending too much time engaged in the practice of real estate and not spending enough time with your family?
when they say things like, who are you?
When you go home and your kids say, Mom, call 911, there's a stranger in the house. So it's the way the Keller Williams business model is. It affords you, if you do it right, you build your business right, where you'll have a really, really good balance
Yeah.
of family and work. I didn't learn that. They threw me in the pool. Did sinkers win? I did. I wasn't taught anything. What new agents have today within this organization, gotta remember, 39 years I've been doing this. I was with a small company for 23. We were bought by another brand name company. For me to leave where I was to come here was a leap of faith. And it was a leap of faith I was willing to do because I know Bill and Ronnie. I told both Bill and Ronnie back in 2012, you guys are gonna be rock stars. He's right. You want a prediction on your life too? So. Oh, good. So for me to make that leap of faith, I saw something that I didn't have in the 39 years I had. I mean, the training here is phenomenal. The great minds within the whole Keller Williams organization is phenomenal. And you can learn, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right?
These people are helping you.
Exactly. And it's a collaborative effort. It's something that you're not going to get in other real estate offices, right? Flo has a team.
Yeah.
Whether you have a team or you work by yourself, the agents within the organization are going to go out of their way to help a new agent try to succeed because it's for the greater cause. So I'm honored and happy to be here. I'm always available for questions. It's just not after midnight.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Thanks.
All right. Stay well and ask a lot of questions.
Absolutely.